Hello, comrades. Welcome back to the program. To those of you who are just joining me now, want to welcome you. I highly suggest going back to watch the first episode if you haven't yet. Goes over basic definition of determinism along with a couple other details that will overall make everything here make a bit more sense. I'll go ahead and link it in the thing. It'll be the first link. Can't miss it. But enough chatter. Let's get going already. So in the last episode, I left you all with two questions. They being, what does hard determinism mean for ethics? And maybe more importantly, what do those implications do to the psyche of your everyday person? Like, what does that line of thought do to a person? How does it influence their actions? Now, before we go ahead and get into all of it, let's go ahead and do a quick recap, alright, just to make sure that we're all on the same page about what hard determinism is. Hard determinism is the idea that determinism is true and incompatible with free will. It's also called nomological determinism and posits all events, choices, and actions a person takes are determined not by any will, but by a hard, fast set of predetermined natural laws. So, let's go over an example real quick, right? Just to ensure that we're all here together. You chose to watch this video of your own will, right? You made the purposely terrible decision to listen to my questionably dulcetly toned voice. At least that's what you think, when, according to determinism, the reality of the situation is that you, for one reason or another, were always going to make this terrible decision. For any untold number of material reasons, this was the reality you were in, and you are utterly powerless to do anything else. Now, with that out of the way, these little introductions and recaps, let's go ahead and get to the fun bit. Ethics. What are the implications of hard determinism in ethics, or really most forms of determinism for that matter? If one chooses, with air quotes, to steal, murder, or rape, and those were never their choices to begin with, are they really at fault for any of those crimes? Hell, can you even still call those crimes in the first place if that's the case? Conversely, what about any of their good deeds? Are they not responsible for any perceived good they do in the world? Now, I'm not going to go through the ethical meanings of the words good and bad because they ultimately don't matter here, and they come off as contradictory when using their traditional definitions. But overall, just think of a good action as one you consciously deem as okay and is something that should exist, while a bad action fails either one of those criteria. What defines these criteria? An episode for another day, perhaps. But I have digressed enough. It is common to think that if you cannot choose to do the actions you do, then any moral responsibilities are moot. After all, is it even fair to judge that which you cannot control? But this is not the sole outlook amongst determinists. In fact, this is only one of many thoughts on the topic. A Nazi soldier is still responsible for supporting a horrible fascist system, even if they were incapable of choosing otherwise, for example. The responsibility in this case isn't necessarily there as a punishment, but as a deterrent, a way of controlling variables that affect people's actions. If you fear social repercussions, you are less likely to go down an undesirable route. The Nazi may consciously feel that their actions are okay, but these actions are ones that should not exist. Thus, according to our reasoning from earlier, their actions are bad. And to keep people from making bad actions, placing a form of responsibility as a deterrent is one way to manipulate the variables in people's lives that ultimately lead them to their choices. As a more personal take, I would not claim the Nazi has any moral responsibility in a traditional sense, but I would claim that they still hold a form of responsibility and that punishment is in some form necessary. I don't want people to be Nazis, I don't want them to spread their views, and I certainly don't want them around. Thus, I want a way to discourage that form of thought, so I hold them responsible for their actions, even if they cannot ultimately help in those actions. The same goes for good actions, too. I would hold those who voluntarily do community service responsible, but in such a way as to encourage that action. Social praise, community parties, they're all ways to encourage those to participate in the community, and that holds the people within responsible for keeping said community thriving. Responsibility isn't held to will, but is a social condition placed to help control actions within a group. You are still responsible for your crimes. You can still be held accountable for your actions beyond your control. However, this accountability isn't about your choice, but about what is ultimately good or bad, and is a tool used by human societies to manipulate human action towards good. This here solves the second question, the one asked at the beginning of the video: what does the line of thought do to a person, and how does it influence their actions? With proper understanding of the material, this thought process alone shouldn't have an effect on human action, as responsibility is in and of itself a strong enough counterweight. Nothing materially changes, so this knowledge won't make you rob an old lady's house because it was never my choice anyway. Now, it has been observed by myself and others far more qualified that holding deterministic views can lead to an increase in apathetic tendencies, but this, I feel, isn't stemmed from determinism itself, but a feeling of a lack of control. This is understandable, as we feel that we control our lives, and whenever that feeling is interrupted, we get upset. But this feeling of apathy is misplaced, based on an incomplete understanding of not only determinism, but the socioeconomic systems humans create as a whole to organize our lives. The goal of a free society should be to reduce any artificial variables that affect human action as much as possible, while at the same time setting up variables that make it possible for as many people as possible to feel free. Ours does not do that. The apathetic response you feel due to a lack of control is not due to the deterministic properties of the universe, but instead the chains placed upon you by capitalist forces. They are artificial restrictions that we have the capability of ridding ourselves from, forming worker syndicates, people states, communes. They're all ways of organizing societies that eventually lead to a freer and happier people. This video does end up bringing in more questions, though. Questions about subjectivity of what is good and bad, or questions on socialist modes of thought, but these are more ethical, political, and social questions than deterministic ones, so I'll revisit these concepts at a later time. However, do note that for this particular case, we are under the assumption that what is good is also predetermined, and that just because we do not know a thing exists doesn't mean that it isn't still good. Anyway, that's the end of this one, comrades. Leave any questions in the comments below or shoot me a message on my Twitter at @nnonapplicableA. The next episode was going to be about something else, but one of you lovely people left a solid question in my Twitter on how causality affects determinism, so we'll be exploring that next week instead because it's super interesting and it would be completely wasted on the end series Q&A. Other than that, comrades, have a great day. I hope to be seeing more of you all again soon. Bye.